and welcome. Tonight, Education Minister Adamu says the federal government is waiting for members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, to accept its offer towards resolving the lingering crisis. Political tempo continues to heat up as candidates meet with various groups ahead of next year's presidential election. Kaduna train attack negotiator Tukur Mamu now in DSS custody after his interception by Nigeria's foreign partners in Cairo, Egypt, on his way to Saudi Arabia.
And on business news tonight, global oil price benchmark Brent hit 7-month low on Eurozone recession fears.
On sports news tonight, Rangers suffers a devastating return to the UEFA Champions League after a 12-year absence as Ajax ran riot in a 4-0 win in Amsterdam.
And from Abuja, more trouble may be brewing in the downstream sector as Pengassan announces plans to hold a nationwide protest against crude oil theft, alleging collusion between host communities and security personnel.
And in international news from London, Vladimir Putin has condemned Western sanctions placed on Russia because of its war in Ukraine as a fever that poses a threat to the entire world.
We'll begin with Nigeria's main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party. It seems to be leaving no stones unturned in efforts to get the party united ahead of the campaigns later this month, as the leadership of the party has been holding a series of meetings behind closed doors today in Abuja. First, it was the national chairman of the PDP who hosted the National Working Committee of the party at the party's secretariat. Although members of the committee refused to address journalists after that meeting, a source in the party says the discussions at the meeting centered mainly around reconciliation and plans for the party's campaign council. According to the source, some members of the National Working Committee wanted a motion to be moved for the resignation of the PDP national chairman, Senator Iyorchia Ayu, a claim the National Publicity Secretary of the party, Mr. Debo Ologunagba, has refuted. Meanwhile, the National Caucus of the PDP is currently in another closed-door meeting with some party chieftains, including Chief Olabode George, former Vice President Namadi Sambo, Chairman of the PDP Governors Forum, Aminu Tambuwal, and the PDP presidential candidate for the 2023 elections in attendance. The PDP has been enmeshed in internal crisis since the emergence of Atiku Abubakar as its presidential candidate for the 2023 elections, with the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, leading the call for the resignation of the PDP national chairman. And staying with the crisis rocking the main opposition party, governorship candidates of the People's Democratic Party in next year's election, they've met with Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State in a new attempt to resolve the festering impasse between the governor and the party's flag bearer, Atiku Abubakar. The candidates, 18 of them, met with Governor Wike at his private residence in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital.
Governorship candidates of the People's Democratic Party arrive at the private residence of Governor Nyesom Wike in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. 17 of them from Kaduna, Plateau, Katsina, Nasarawa, Kebbi, Benue, Sokoto, Jigawa, Borno, Yobe, Kwara, Kano, Lagos, Niger, Ogun, Cross River and Delta are joining their counterparts in Rivers to discuss the way out of the crisis in the party. They are led into a conference room at about 8 p.m. and were joined by their host, Nyesom Wike, shortly after for a closed-door meeting which lasted for about 3 hours. Chairman of the visiting candidates gave an insight into the discussion.
We are through. We have discussed with the presidential candidate. We are here with our brother and friend, and issues that borders on what has happened has been sorted out.
He also revealed their next line of action now that they have met with the two gladiators, Atiku Abubakar, who is their presidential candidate, and Governor Nyesom Wike, an aspirant in the last presidential primary election.
The issue has been resolved as far as I'm concerned, because we have heard from both sides, and we're going to meet with the National Working Committee to take a decision.
The next couple of days will reveal what decision the National Working Committee, which may make or mar the chances of the party in the next year's election.
In the meantime, Governors Nyesom Wike of Rivers State and Udom Emmanuel of Akwa Ibom State, as well as former presidents of the Senate, Pius Ayim and Dr. Bukola Saraki, were among those absent during a meeting between the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, and former presidential aspirant of the party. The meeting, which held at the Asokoro residence of the former vice president, was attended by 5 of the former presidential aspirants, including Chief Dele Momodu. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, has more.
Since emerging as the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar's Asokoro residence in Abuja has played host to many party members, and this time some of those that contested the party's presidential primary with him are the latest to pay him a visit.
Good to see you, sir. Congratulations.
However, conspicuously absent from the meeting are Governors Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, Udom Emmanuel of Akwa Ibom State, and former presidents of the Senate, Pius Ayim and Bukola Saraki, who also contested the presidential primary with him. Speaking on behalf of the former PDP presidential aspirants, Chief Dele Momodu appeals for unity in the party.
Our only appeal is that whatever is worrying or disturbing the peace of the party, we must do everything to make sure that we bring it under control. Distinguished friends and...
However, Mr. Atiku Abubakar says he remains committed to work with all his party members, including those who lost at the presidential primary.
I am ever ready to work with you, to listen to you, in fact, to be partners.
Earlier, he met with some PDP stalwarts from Niger State, led by the former Minister of Information, Professor Jerry Ghana, who appeals to Mr. Abubakar to take further steps to build unity in the party.
We want you to win. May the good Lord give you the wisdom to be able to take the right decisions for these issues to be resolved finally.
Speaking to journalists after the meeting, former Governor of Niger State, Dr. Babangida Aliyu, says those who lost in the last PDP primary should show sportsmanship.
This is not the first time that people have lost primaries, and this will not be the last time. But where people have made up their mind to say they must destroy whatever that they did not get because they did not get what they were looking for, I think Nigerians and the PDP members must open their eyes to understand that. However, we must always be ready for reconciliation.
In the coming days, the leadership of the People's Democratic Party will be meeting at various levels to resolve its differences before the commencement of campaigns later in the month. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And to the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, where its flag bearer, Bola Tinubu, has dismissed reports of any feud between him and the party's national chairman, Abdullahi Adamu. The APC candidates were speaking in Abuja during a meeting with the National Working Committee of the party, where he says he remains determined to ensure that Nigeria is fully democratized. Mr. Tinubu is meeting the National Working Committee for the first time since emerging as the APC presidential candidate candidate. The meeting was also attended by the APC vice presidential candidate, Mr. Kashim Shettima.
I give delight to the rumor manufacturers. I read in some papers disagreement between myself and the chairman. That's a lie. A very big lie. We come a long way. They didn't know. And you see, the big masquerade dance and not syndicate in the market square. And that is what Adamu is to me. It's full of wisdom. And we are governors together. And God has put us together on this project again. And he's going to deliver. He's going to deliver as the chairman of party when I become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I'm so confident about that, you know, they can say whatever they want to say. They can throw all the jabs and gibberish that they want. We are a party strongly determined to fulfill our dreams of turning Nigeria to a very progressive, highly developed, prosperous country.
Still talking politics, presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, says his engagements with Nigerians living outside the country are part of the series of diaspora consultations. Mr. Obi, who was speaking after meeting with some Nigerians in London, says Nigerians in diaspora are a critical component in turning the country around. Our correspondent, Juliana Olainka, has more.
The event was discreetly advertised as a low-key, closed-door one-on-one with Peter Obi in the British capital. But as to be expected, the Labour Party presidential candidate drew in a large crowd from across the UK's Nigerian diaspora, all of them visibly eager to get a glimpse of the populist leader in the flesh.
We just cannot continue. Mr. Obi,
30 guests were anticipated and over 300 showed up in a remote location in leafy northwest London.
I'm not a member of this party.
The vast majority of Nigerians here and the millions of others that make up the swarming diaspora are not eligible to vote in the 2023 presidential elections, raising questions back home about the true motive of these so-called diaspora consultations that Labour Party chieftains have previously told Channels TV are the true reason for this whirlwind tour.
Everywhere I've been, from California to Houston to everywhere, you won't believe the number of Nigerians. And everybody's worried, but I said to them, well, as worried as I am, and people complain about brain drain. For me, brain drain, this is brain gain. These are the people that will change Nigeria. These are the people that will be the first investors when Nigeria starts working. Because they will bring all this talent and then
During his address, the former Anambra State Governor touched on the issues of insecurity, the importance of infrastructure, and he outlined his vision for his potential tenure.
Everything is good. God blessed us with both natural and human resources. The only thing that was missing is leadership. And you cannot continue.
The energy in the room was undeniable. The longing for a new Nigeria palpable too, though it's not this room that the Labour Party presidential candidate will have to convince. Juliana Olainka, reporting for Channels TV News in London.
In part two, after the break, Governors Nyesom Wike and his Oyo State counterpart, Seyi Makinde, speak on the crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party, say their stand is in the interest of the people. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Education Minister Adama Adamu says the federal government is waiting for members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities to accept its offer towards resolving the lingering crisis. Political tempo continues to heat up as candidates meet with various groups ahead of next year's presidential election. Kaduna train attack negotiator Tukur Mamu now in DSS custody after his interception by Nigeria's foreign partners in Cairo, Egypt, on his way to Saudi Arabia. And Russian President Vladimir Putin condemns Western sanctions imposed because of the war in Ukraine. Stakeholders in the People's Democratic Party have continued to throw jabs at opposing camps as the crisis in the party lingers after its presidential primary. The camp of Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State doubled down today as the governor boasted that those of them who are being described as children are the most performing governors whose achievements should help the party's campaign. He spoke at the inauguration of a campus of the Rivers State University in Emohua, where his guest and governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, maintains that Mr. Wike's allies will continue to fight for their space in the party.
It's another day of project inauguration for the Rivers State government following recent series of projects flag off and commissioning. Just as the previous day, Governor Nyesom Wike, his special guest and governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde, are in Emohua local government area to inaugurate the second of the 3 new satellite campuses of the Rivers State University in actualization of a 41-year vision of having 5 satellite campuses for the state-owned tertiary institution. The special guest, who is a major ally of Mr. Wike, appreciates his host for putting the citizens first while maintaining that their recent collective political struggle is in the interest of the people.
If children are doing all of this, I think what Nigeria needs are children. And what I'll say to you is, Aluta continua. We will continue to fight for our space within PDP, and we'll continue to ensure that what is right for our people is given to our people.
For Governor Wike, his allies are the most performing governors whose achievements should project the People's Democratic Party positively.
If PDP state, for example, if Rivers State would didn't do well, then you will say because APC did not do well, natural, then you will vote for us. No. They'll tell you PDP, it didn't do well in Rivers State too. People don't understand that. That's why the party should respect us and know that we are the ones campaigning. We are the ones campaigning for the party. Because we have what to use to campaign.
Beyond the provision of infrastructure, Governor Wike defends his administration in job creation.
You can imagine the number of people who will come here to study or to be in the faculty of agriculture. If they were in the main campus, it would have been difficult to accommodate the number of persons. Some people think employment is only when you employ you to the ministries. But they don't know that
Employment also include the one that universities are employing, because the state government that's paying the salaries.
The Emoha campus is to accommodate the Faculty of Social Sciences of the Rivers State University and will no doubt boost the socio-economic outlook of the area.
To security, a lead member of the negotiating team for the release of victims of the March 28 train attack in Kaduna State, Tukur Mamu, has been arrested by the Department of State Security Services, DSS. Mr. Mamu, who is also the spokesman for Kaduna-based Islamic cleric Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, was arrested this afternoon by DSS operatives at the Aminu Kano International Airport shortly after his arrival from Egypt. A statement by the DSS spokesman, Peter Afunaya, says Mr. Manu, being a person of interest, was intercepted by Nigeria's foreign partners at Cairo following a request by Nigeria's military, law enforcement and intelligence community to their foreign partners to bring him back to answer critical questions in ongoing investigations relating to some security matters in parts of the country.
Tukur Mamu, the publisher of a Kaduna-based newspaper, Desert Herald, came to limelight in June this year when he was appointed a member of the federal government negotiating team for the release of the 62 victims of the March 28 train attack in Chikun local government area of Kaduna State. Before then, Tukur, who is also the spokesman for the Kaduna-based Islamic cleric Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, has voiced his concerns on the rising insecurity in the northern region and has also been an advocate for the federal government to negotiate with the bandit groups, including terrorists.
As you can confirm from the interview of one of the adoptees, who is a medical doctor, he expressed, a very disturbing situation about the condition of most of them that are there, and even called on the federal government to act very fast so that their health condition will not deteriorate to a level that can consume their lives.
Mamu also believes that the war against banditry cannot be won through military might.
The victims of the train attack, though not all of them, 11 of them, were successfully rescued as a result of a series of engagements and dialogue with the abductors. It's a very, very difficult process, but it has been achieved at the end of the day. And that is to show you how the power of the dialogue and engagement can succeed.
Between June and August this year, Tukur Mamu has been involved in the release of 39 out of the 62 kidnapped passengers, while 23 others are still in captivity. On August the 10th, he announced his withdrawal as a member of the negotiating team on the ground that the federal government was not forthcoming in the suggestions made by the committee. Mamu's arrest by Nigeria's Secret Service, the DSS, in Kano, is a new dimension in the efforts to get the remaining train victims released. Only time will tell how this plays out in the coming days.
More than 80% of them, these are people.
We're now off to our Abuja studios for more stories. Here's Gloria Mozoke standing by. Hi, Gloria.
Hello, Millicent. Thank you. Well, we'll begin with some not-too-cheery news. Members of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN, are planning a nationwide protest against crude oil theft, alleging that a collusion between host communities and security officials is the reason why the menace continues to thrive. Addressing journalists in Abuja, the president of the association, Mr. Festus Osifo, alleges that security personnel sent to the Niger Delta region to curb crude oil theft are culpable and should be held responsible for most of the oil theft in the region.
The OPEC quota today for Nigeria is somewhere above 1.8 million barrels of crude oil per day. But today we struggle to produce just over 1 million because majority of this crude oil are stolen, and at best companies are shutting production. As PENGASSAN, we felt that no, we can no longer fold our arms. We felt that the discussions that we have been having in offices enough is enough. And we should also follow it up by a rally that is going to take place across the 4 zones plus Abuja of Pengassan come tomorrow, 8th of September 2022. Government must wake up. There must be consequence management. You cannot send naval officers. You cannot send civil defense officers. You cannot send men and women of Nigeria Army to the creeks of Niger Delta, and you don't develop a mechanism to hold them accountable. Because if there is no accountability, if there is no consequence management, if at best you keep cycling them 6 months thereafter, you keep cycling them every 6 months, what you are only doing is creating circles of millionaires every 6 months. That is what is currently happening.
Well, still ahead on the news at 10, global oil price benchmark Brent hit 7-month low on Eurozone recession fears. But that's in business news. Do join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching the news at 10, coming to you live on Channels Television. The federal government has asked the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority to sanction foreign airlines refusing to sell tickets in Naira. The Minister of Aviation, Mr. Hadi Sirika, disclosed this today at a briefing after the Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by the President Muhammadu Buhari in the State House. A good number of ministers, including the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, are physically present for the Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by the President, Muhammadu Buhari. Operations in the nation's aviation sector came under focus. The aviation minister disclosed that investigations carried out revealed that foreign airlines are flouting domestic laws by selling tickets in dollars.
I want to use this opportunity to say that some of the airlines reports are reaching us that they are refusing to sell tickets in Naira. That is our violation of our laws, local laws. They will not be allowed. The high and the mighty amongst them will be sanctioned if they are caught doing that. NCAA had been directed to swing into action, and once we find any airline violating this, we will definitely deal with them.
He reiterates that efforts to float the national carrier Air Nigeria is on course. Contrary to reports that 16 billion naira has been spent on the carrier, he says that only 352 million naira has been approved for the transaction advisory service, while 299 million has been approved for engagement of consultancy. He explains that all amounts are yet to be disbursed.
Humanitarian.
Against the backdrop of allegations in some quarters that President Muhammadu Buhari nominated individuals believed to be card-carrying members of the APC as resident electoral commissioners of INEC, the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, argues that the president will not withdraw their names based on what he calls media trial.
I don't think it is the business of the president to immediately throw out a nominee based on allegations which have not been proven. I think the whole idea is that these people will go for confirmation in the National Assembly. The same questions that they've been raised in public domain, they will be asked. I think this media trial is quite worrisome. Because even when these people are cleared of any wrongdoings, nobody comes back to apologize to them.
The Federal Executive Council also approved a national flood emergency preparedness and response plan in Nigeria to scale up response measures and mitigate the impact of flooding.
We call on all states and operational stakeholders to implement the plan so that we can return to normalcy and protect our national development.
The Council also approved the National Social Investment Programme Establishment Bill 2022. The minister assures that the bill will give legal backing to the National Social Investment Programme as an agency with a mandate of fulfilling the president's agenda to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty by 2023. The primate of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion and Bishop of Abuja Diocese, Most Reverend Henry Ndukuba, is asking the federal government to address issues of corruption and insecurity in the country ahead of the 2023 general elections. Speaking during a news conference in Abuja, Reverend Ndukuba says it is most unfortunate that many Nigerians are gradually losing faith in the country because of the myriad of challenges being faced by citizens.
Because of corruption, the things that need to be done in order to help our citizens are not being done. The meager resources that we have are looted. And the things that ought to be done, even from the highest positions of authority to even the least in the streets, are all infected and affected by this virus of corruption. It has eaten deep into the fabrics of every community and organization and society of our society. And indeed, it has affected very adversely our national life. The result is that some of us have given up resisting and fighting corruption. Some of us have accepted it as a norm. But this must be addressed and confronted. We know and we are convinced that this nation can do better. And God has given us a great destiny and position, even within this continent of Africa and in the world. This can only be realized if we can deal with this monster of corruption.
That's it from the nation's capital. It's back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Gloria. To some company news now. A consumer goods company in Nigeria, Unilever, has unveiled a new, refreshed and exciting packaging for products under its master brand, Sunlight. The company also activated a new TV commercial to drive the brand's purpose of supporting women to contribute more to their household and society. During the ceremony in Lagos, Unilever revealed that it will empower 500,000 African female entrepreneurs to develop their businesses into sustainable and profitable ventures by the end of 2025.
It's a milestone celebration as management and staff of Unilever Nigeria, as well as key distributors, converge to witness the relaunch of the company's flagship home care brand, Sunlight. Unilever is not just unveiling a new look across Sunlight brand variants, it is offering consumers more than they expect.
We've given you a product that washes better and leave no residues on your clothes. Burst after burst of uplifting fragrances, new exciting packaging, and then there is a size for everyone. So we have it in all pack sizes from 3 kg to 2 kg to 30 grams to 25 grams.
More for the consumer, but much more for women. The relaunch furthers Unilever's commitment to fulfilling the brand's purpose, which is to empower women to do more.
A very germane part of our brand is the value we place on the contribution of women to the family, to the economy, and on a larger scale to the society. The realization of their dreams may now be possible because we not only support them with funding, but we also help them through each step of the way, holding their hands, training them, mentoring them, and coaching them, amongst many other things that we bring to their lives.
Besides the relaunch, Unilever also activates a new television commercial with a tagline to enhance the brand's goal.
There's a stereotype that society currently places on women as just homemakers. We are trying to break that stereotype by encouraging women to become more than what we expect of them, and that's what our tagline means. And we have all over Africa, we have a target to empower 500,000 women. So Nigeria will definitely be playing a huge role in achieving the total sunlight target by 2025.
The cutting of a sunlight cake rounds off this celebration of legacy. Sunlight was first launched in Nigeria in 2009, and since then, the foundational brand has remained a major contributor to the turnover of Unilever Africa. The company says it remains strong in its commitment not only to supporting African women across the continent, but also to improving revenue growth.
More from the world of business, here's Teniola Oyetayo.
Thanks a lot, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. Global oil prices fell to a 7-month low today amid fears of an imminent recession across Western countries. Brent crude plunged more than 4% to $88.73 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate fell 4.7% to $82.86. On Tuesday, credit rating agency Fitch had said that the halting of the Nord Stream 1 pipeline has increased the likelihood of a recession in the Eurozone. The European Central Bank is expected to raise interest rates sharply when it meets on Thursday. Meanwhile, unprecedented levels of crude oil theft, subsidy payments and lack of investments in Nigeria cut short high revenue opportunity on rising oil prices. And the British pound has fallen to its lowest level against the US dollar in almost 4 decades amid a worsening UK economic outlook. According to Refinitiv data, the pound sterling fell as much as 0.9% earlier today to $1.14, its lowest point since 1985. The pound has lost more than 15% against the dollar so far this year, hurt by both the strong dollar and the country's gloomy economy. UK inflation is already the highest of the G7 economies, and a recession has been forecast by analysts for months. And the equities market extends losses, posting a 3-day losing streak as investors take profit in high-valued stocks. Jeffrey Uzonu has the details.
Hello and welcome to Stock Market Report. A moderate drop at the close of trade at the NGX today. The loss in value today is much less than yesterday at about 25 billion naira. The all-share index is still far from the 50,000 points after shedding 0.09%. Now, if you look at it, it's a persistent negative market breadth with 15 stocks posting gains while 13 stocks decline. If we look at the leaders board, PZ closed with 9 naira as its share price for today with a percentage change at 9.7%. Champs led the losers chart with 10% drop as the share price closing at 27 kobo. Typical of a negative trading activity chart, unilaterally in red, leaving the bear quite elated. So we leave the bear here for the night. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. It's back to you.
And that's Business News tonight. I'm Teniola Oyetayo. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Thanks, Teniola. Outside our shores, Africa is not on track to meet the Sustainable Development Goal 2 target to end hunger and ensure access by all people to safe, nutritious and sufficient food all year round, and to end all forms of malnutrition. Increasing access to healthy diets and advancing pathways for people, planet and prosperity are the 2 main focus of high-level sessions, which held today at the ongoing African Green Revolution Forum in Kigali, Rwanda. Our correspondent Ayola Kasim has more.
14-month-old Aisha Usman in Damaturu, Yobe State. She's one of up to 5,000 children in Nigeria's northeast at risk of dying of hunger, and one of 12.1 million children affected by wasting in Africa. What's more, the State of Food Security and Nutrition 2022 report shows that Africa is backsliding and bearing the heaviest burden, with almost 300 million people hungry on the continent.
It's unfair for us to live as people, cared of our level, and leave this the new generation in this painful distance. So this is really a challenge for us that we should advance with our agenda.
The need to change the narrative on hunger in Africa is a message to the First Ladies here and across the continent during the session on increasing access to a healthy diet.
Janet Kagame, please, a round of applause.
The wife of the president of Rwanda appeals to her colleagues to do all they can to influence policies that will not only end food insecurity, but also reduce the number of non-communicable diet-related illnesses like cardiovascular diseases, stroke, and diabetes.
We must draw wisdom from the global trend of a return to indigenous agriculture practices, greater consumption of biofoods, and regular exercise to purge lifestyle-related diseases.
Later in the day, during the presidential plenary that has in attendance presidents from Zimbabwe, Niger, Vice President of Tanzania, former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, and other high government officials across Africa and the Commonwealth, President Kagame of Rwanda reminds his colleagues that to advance pathways for people, planet, and prosperity, everyone in Africa is stronger and better together.
As we track our progress and hold each other accountable, let us learn from our successes and setbacks to strengthen our efforts going forward. By transforming our food systems together, we will achieve in a sustainable way our ambitions for our people, planet, and our shared prosperity as laid out in the 2030 agenda.
At the end of the day, the leaders agree that it is important to use the forum to keep the conversation on food systems transformation going to achieve the Africa we want. Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
Your Excellencies.
More international news. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is planning to propose a price cap on Russian gas, as well as other measures such as a mandatory EU cut in electricity use and a cap on the revenue of non-gas power generators. It comes as Russian President Vladimir Putin warned that the West undermined the global economy. The Russian leader said Western currencies were falling, while Russia was not losing anything. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Vladimir Putin has condemned Western sanctions imposed because of Russia's war in Ukraine as a fever that poses a threat to the entire world. In a speech to an economic forum in Vladivostok, he said Russia was coping with what he called the West's economic aggression. He also said Europe was cheating poor countries out of Ukraine's grain. For months, Ukraine's seaports were blockaded by Russian forces, but since exports resumed at the start of August, Russia's leader asserted that only 2 grain ships had gone to Africa, which is not the case. He said he wanted to discuss revisiting the deal in remarks rejected by Ukraine as groundless. Liz Truss has taken Prime Minister's questions in the Commons for the first time as Prime Minister. In front of the most diverse front bench in history, with no white men in any of the top jobs, she promised to help people with soaring energy bills, with her government set to announce a package of support with energy bills tomorrow.
Well, I
understand that people across our country are struggling with the cost of living and they're struggling with their energy bills. And that is why I, as Prime Minister, will take immediate action to help people with the cost of their energy bills. And I will be making an announcement to this House on that tomorrow.
But the Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, questioned how she will fund this if she also plans to cut taxes.
Well, I look forward to tomorrow's statement, but the money's got to come from somewhere. And she knows that every single pound in excess profits she chooses not to tax is an extra pound on borrowing that working people will be forced to pay back for decades to come. More borrowing than is needed. That's the true cost of her choice to protect oil and gas profits, isn't it? Yeah.
India's technology hub of Bengaluru was gearing up for more heavy rain after a brief respite from severe flooding, as authorities stepped up efforts to evacuate people and pump water out of inundated areas. The country's so-called Silicon Valley is facing an unusually wet monsoon, which has brought 162% more rainfall than average since June the 1st. Floods, after 2 days of incessant rains this week, have brought chaos and killed at least one person. While flooded roads had cleared in the worst hit areas, the situation was likely to turn grim again with heavy rain expected later in the day. Meanwhile, 7 people in South Korea have died after they were trapped in an underground car park during floods caused by Typhoon Hinnamnor. They had gone down to move their cars, but got caught by the incoming torrents. Rescue crews said they rescued 2 people who reportedly survived by clinging to ceiling pipes for more than 12 hours. More than 170 members of local fire stations, the military and the Coast Guard joined forces in the rescue efforts. Typhoon Hinnamnor tore through South Korea's southern industrial hubs this week, leaving at least 10 people dead, 2 missing, and thousands displaced. A bridge in Democratic Republic of Congo has collapsed just as officials gathered to inaugurate it. Onlookers appeared to cheer as the bridge buckled, with both of its handrails breaking off. Nobody was reported to have been hurt in the incident. And finally, New York's district attorney has returned $19 million worth of stolen art to Italy. The 58 pieces include a marble head of the goddess Athena, dated 200 BC, worth an estimated $3 million alone. The stolen artifacts were sold on to museums and private dealers by convicted looters. It is the city's latest effort to return plundered goods to their country of origin. $66 million worth have been returned so far this year. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel Studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Time now for some sports news. 9-time African champions, the Super Falcons of Nigeria, have departed the United States of America after a 2-match tour in which they lost both games to the 3-time world champions, the United States women's national team. The focus is now on their next international friendly against Japan on October the 6th. The game will hold at the Novier Stadium, Kobe, in Japan. Both teams have clashed only once at competitive level at the 2004 Olympic women's football tournament, where the Nadeshiko pipped the Falcons 1-0 at the Caracicas Stadium in Piraeus. Chelsea FC are set to hold talks with Brighton boss Graham Potter about replacing sacked Thomas Tuchel. Tuchel, who won 3 trophies in 20 months at Stamford Bridge, was sacked by the Blues earlier today. Now, the 47-year-old has been given permission by the Seagulls to talk with Chelsea. Tuchel was dismissed after losing the confidence of Chelsea's players and the new ownership who took over at the club in the month of May. Rangers have suffered a chastening return to the UEFA Champions League after a 12-year absence as Ajax ran riot in a 4-0 win in Amsterdam earlier today. Napoli claimed a stunning 4-1 victory over last season's beaten finalist Liverpool in their opening group game, as a worrying start to the campaign continued for Jurgen Klopp's side. Well, in Spain, Robert Lewandowski marked his first Champions League game for Barcelona with a hat-trick as Xavi's side thrashed Victoria 5-1 at the Camp Nou, while Bayern defeated Inter Milan 2-0. Richarlison finally scored for Tottenham Hotspur as the Brazil forwards double-powered his side to a 2-0 victory over 10-man Marseille. Francis Tiafoe of the United States defeated Andrei Rublev in straight sets to power into the semifinals of the U.S. Open this evening. Tiafoe, aiming to become the first African-American man to win the U.S. Open since Arthur Ashe in 1968, put on a scintillating performance to defeat Russian 9th seed Rublev 7-6, 7-6, 6-4 in 2 hours, 36 minutes. Tiafoe, seeded 22nd, will face either Spanish 3rd seed Carlos Alcaraz or Jannik Sinner in the last 4 on Friday. And that's sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. Back to you, Millicent.
Thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. Education Minister Adamu Adamu today said the federal government is waiting for members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities to accept its offer towards resolving the lingering crisis. The minister was speaking on our political program, Politics Today, said he would do everything within his capacity to resolve the impasse. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night and stay safe.